Head T, Ministry of National Development, Mr. Alex Yam.
Chairman, I beg to move that the total sum to be allocated for Head T of the estimates be reduced by $100. As a member of the class of 2011 in Parliament, like me, many members of this House would have personally experienced the volume of appeals by our residents regarding housing matters from 2009 through to 2013. Many were young couples, and even their parents, who came to meet the people's sessions anxious and perhaps also perplexed by the housing situation then. Many try, but were constantly unsuccessful in their applications for a flat. Fast forward to today, I think we can mostly agree that the situation has gotten much better. Just by volume of cases, you can tell that the increase in supply and the multiple improvements that have been made and introduced then by Minister Khaw Boon Wan and more recently by Minister Lawrence Wong and the M&D team have made a difference. This is a ministry that has listened intently to feedback from the public and suggestions from backbenchers for a re-emphasis on the centrality of housing to the social compact that we have with fellow Singaporeans, and that there are housing options for Singaporeans at every life stage. While the appeals on purchase flats has reduced, there is still work required on the other end of the housing spectrum, and this is rental housing. At last year's Committee of Supply, I spoke on the issue of co-living as well as our public rental flat schemes. I am thankful that the Ministry has made improvements on many fronts, yet it is still an issue that vexes. I therefore welcome the Senior Parliamentary Secretary's reiteration yesterday that public rental should be temporary. To help households in rental housing to move to home ownership is certainly not straightforward. There are multiple issues that rental families face. We have experimented with different schemes before, such as the HOPE scheme, Home Ownership and Education, which I had previously raised issues with. We now have the Fresh Start housing scheme, which the SPS also updated the House that 74 families have now been in place. Yet, with a scheme that has been in place since December 2016, the numbers seem to indicate a fresh, but yet not so fast start. I took a look at the available numbers. In December 2017, 56 applied, 33 were successful. In December 2018, Minister announced that 70 were placed. Today, in March 2019, we have 74. If we look at the figures of the number of families who have progressed from rental to home ownership of 3,500 over the last 6 years, 74 seems very small indeed. And 3,500 households across 56,000 rental units seems to indicate that the journey, though encouraged, is honestly quite fraught. Most of us would have rental households in our own constituencies. We are certainly proud and happy for our residents who have successfully progressed to purchasing their own homes. But do we also shed a tear for the many who are left behind? We have seen their struggles firsthand. They try to hold a job, fight ill health, to balance family needs, to pay debts, and for some of them to stay on the straight and narrow. For us and many community partners, we do whatever we can to help them. Yet, often challenges remain and continue to surface that keep them from completely lifting themselves out. I'm therefore heartened by SPS's announcement of a home ownership support team to provide stronger personalized help for those with potential for home ownership. The work for the new team will certainly not be easy. Could the Ministry therefore update the House on the ambit of this new team, and what are the conditions that the team will be looking at to identify households that can potentially become homeowners? Based on the understanding of this criteria, could I also ask the Ministry how many rental households today would potentially move towards home ownership in the next 5 years? And what are the main barriers that would keep the rest from moving towards these aspirations? While we address the issue of families progressing to home ownership from rental, there is also a group who face even greater challenges. These are our elderly poor, often single without family support. Last year, I raised the issue of joint singles, where co-tenants are unable to get along. Would the Ministry consider having more rental flats refurbished to provide for more privacy within the flats for co-tenants to have some semblance of their own space? This reduces the disagreements that may surface. Also, I would suggest for an adjustment period to be included for the benefit of both co-tenants so that they have time to adjust to each other before committing to a full rental contract. This could be for a month and come with certain preconditions. From elders in rental flats to elderly homeowners, the Ministry has provided additional options over the years. One example is the Lease Buyback Scheme, or LBS for short. After the enhanced LBS was first announced by DPM Tarman in 2012, fellow members and I have pushed for greater adoption of the scheme, and also for the scheme to be extended. Further improvements were then made in 2014, and I was most heartened when Minister Lawrence announced after last year's NDR that the LBS will be extended to all flat types, effective from the 1st January of this year. I've actively promoted the LBS to my older residents, and as I have a high number of larger flats, the extension is welcome news for my residents. However, I also wish to point out that there are many who are still unaware of the details and grapple with issues surrounding living an asset for their children, or should they live beyond the period under the LBS agreement. Would the Ministry therefore consider better communication on the scheme and perhaps offer a customized info kit to homeowners who qualify for the scheme so that they can be better informed of their options? Related to this, of course, is diminishing lease and its impact on home prices. The Ministry had earlier indicated in August 2018 that it is studying the possibility of allowing liberalization of the usage of CPF for older, shorter lease flats. I wish therefore to ask the Ministry for an update on the study so far and the parameters that the Ministry are looking at to make this work. I would also point out that while this would open up the market for older flats and allow younger homeowners the option of purchasing an older flat using more of their CPF, we must not solve two problems and yet move the main issue of diminishing leases further down the line. For younger aspiring homeowners as well as second-timers, the sale of balance flat scheme and the reoffer of balanced flat schemes are often seen as the easier and quicker option to getting keys to your own flat. But I often caution younger residents who try for SPF that they are competing for a smaller pool with a bigger crowd, and yet they still try. Therefore, I welcome the Ministry's announcement that the ROF will now be extended all year round and made available online on a first-come, first-served basis. However, I wish to ask how the Ministry intends for the system to work smoothly and avoid opportunistic applications rather than from those with genuine needs. Could the Ministry also clarify how the first-come, first-served system will be fair for all? If the ROF scheme under the new arrangement is proven to be a successful model, I would ask that the Ministry also consider extending it to the SBF scheme as well. Over the years, I have also been making an appeal for better access to housing for singles and single parents. We have made big strides for singles, and the extension of grants in the last 2 years have been helpful for many applicants. However, one feedback I have consistently received is that while the grants are attractive, often they are hard to qualify for, such as the proximity grant when the estates that singles wish to apply for close to their parents or child are of larger flat types that they do not qualify for. For single parents and divorcees, the waiver of the wait-out period that was announced recently is a godsend. However, the requirement for approval of the former spouse to purchase a flat often still serves as a major barrier. Could the Ministry therefore consider further relaxing this requirement? Mr. Chairman, we live in a fast-changing world. Singapore prides itself as a city that keeps pace with technology. Could the Ministry update on the plans to make our nation's built infrastructure future-ready? In doing so, can we also ensure that it continues to be a welcoming and livable city where all Singaporeans can feel a part of? What are the challenges that lie ahead of us? Last year, I had the privilege of accompanying President Halima on her state visit to the Netherlands. While there, I saw for myself the Dutch living out the polder culture in all aspects of their life, especially in how they build and plan their city. Like us, we are a small country surrounded by water and risks of global warming and rising sea levels. I watched a simulation there at the Research Institute of our city centre, flooded as seawaters rise. We can talk about it, but watching it really hits home quickly. The reality is that the risks are real. How can we plan in advance for this possibility and learn from the experiences of others? Singapore ultimately is our home. It must be one that is enduring and enduring. Our homes must be places of comfort and safety, our communities built on trust and cohesiveness, our environment green and welcoming, our nation united and strong. At the root of it all is our compact with Singaporeans, a promise that we have kept and must continue to keep, come hell or high water.